Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to Unit Lost. I'm Stylosa and good God, Total War Warhammer has released a gameplay trailer and let's take a look at this because this could well be the greatest Warhammer game ever made. That's if they manage to pull it off. But let's take a look at it. So on the one hand, it's kind of rather strange that this game is being developed around the now defunct Warhammer Fantasy Battles. But I guess on the other hand, it kind of makes all the sense in the world, because if there ever was a marriage between a developer and an IP to make a licensed product which could potentially be absolutely ridiculous, Warhammer Fantasy is a tabletop line battle game. That is, it's a tabletop version of bloody Total War. Therefore, a Total War Warhammer game, well, it just makes all of the sense. It's crazy. It could be beautiful, oh lord. Now, historically, Games Workshop hardly make the greatest decisions when it comes to licensing their glorious IPs out to devs. God knows, you only really need to take a look at the App Store and you can see a torrent of absolutely shoddy, terrible mobile games that nobody wants to play and nobody knows why they've been made. It's just ridiculous. However, recently, it looks as if they've finally turned a corner and we've got a slew of Warhammer games on the horizon, but one stands out above the rest. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Total War Warhammer. Oh lord. So let's break down this gameplay trailer and just take a look at what's going on. Let's start off with the good. Look at this guy. He's a massive, monstrous, giant, murderous creature from I don't even know where, but he's angry and he wants to kill people. Look at that thing. That is a big, massive, angry, murderous spider. Good God. Massive, monstrous creatures, they are a part of Warhammer Fantasy and, well, they are a part of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, which now no longer exists, but whatever. They were a part of it, that's what I tried to say. They look pretty nice. They look good. They should be there, and it's great that they are. There's great looking aerial combat as well. Just look at Carl Franz flying around on his fancy griffin. He picks up orcs and he throws them away, and then there's this orc guy flying around slamming into the Empire dudes. It looks beautiful. Even in this pre-alpha state, it looks pretty good. We've got spells as well. Now, casting spells is a large part of Warhammer Fantasy. They claim they won't be too OP though, so they don't really want you dominating the battlefield with the spells. But then they show you the foot of Gork, or is it Mork? I don't know. It stamps down and it destroys an Empire steam tank and their crazy beam cannon thing. And then there's a crazy goblin shaman guy running around. He casts a bit of a spell, which by the way the animation looks terrible. But he casts the spell and he kills an entire unit of Empire cavalry. It's like, wow, that's kind of OP to me. So I don't know what the hell is going on there. It's a bit weird. Melee infantry pile into combat. They jump in. They launch themselves into the fray. Now, this is what they would be doing. I mean, just look at these orcs running straight into the Empire line. Orcs would not run up to you and then hit you with a sword. They're just going to throw themselves at you. They are crazy. They live for the combat. They live for the murder. That's all orcs do. They go to war. They love it. And that looks pretty good. You know, if they can refine this a bit more, I think it'll look pretty good. But it already looks better than, even in this pre-alpha state, it looks way better than... You kind of get these shoving matches in Total War where the infantry just runs up to each other and they just sort of like, they push and they're waiting in line. It's all very orderly. Bobby's died in front of me. I'll step forward. Hopefully that doesn't go on with this. I mean, it already, like I said, looks a bit better, especially with the impact. And I suppose the main positive is it looks and feels like Warhammer Fantasy Battles. If you gave this to somebody and said, what is this? And they had any knowledge of Warhammer, they'd go, that looks like Warhammer Fantasy Battles. That's what it looks like. It completely looks like it, which is great, which is what you want. Beautiful. So let's talk about the bad. Massive monstrous creatures, they look great, as I said, but take this giant for example. He's standing still and he picks up one infantryman and he bites off his head. Surely a giant would be like swinging his massive club around, wiping out like tens of infantry with one go. You've all seen the giant from Game of Thrones. I forgot what the name of the show was for some reason. You know, you see him smashing all the undead guys to bits. It's beautiful. White Walker's got nothing on him. You know how he rolls. It's beautiful. That's what you want to see. That's what I'd want to see. Now, I think this is probably a balance-related thing, because you couldn't have a giant just running in, destroying entire, you know, sections of infantry all the time. It'd be a bit OP. So I think it's probably some sort of balance thing. If I remember rightly, in Rome, the elephants kind of did that. I think when they had high stamina, they would run in and they would like take out quite a bit of infantry, but then they'd slow down and they sort of get bogged down. But they've got a lot of hit points to take a lot of time to get rid of. Blah blah blah. It looks like it's like that, which I'm going to say that's a negative because I want the giants to be murdering people. But I can kind of understand why that's been done. And obviously the same applies to all the other crazy creatures that you see, like the big spiders and whatever. Now I touched on this a bit earlier, but the spell effects, they look terrible. Now I know this is meant to be pre-alpha footage, so they do have a very valid excuse for this. but they do look dated. Like, they look pretty bad to me. I mean, I'm hoping they're just placeholders and they're really going to beef them up, because they look a bit meh. Also, there's no, like, impact. When Gork's foot comes down and smashes the steam tank up, it's like, what? Yeah, it just sort of happens. It's like, oh, okay. And that ball of whatever, the Goblin Shaman guy cast, is just like, that just looks terrible. So I hope they work on that. But as I say, it's pre-alpha, so they do have a valid excuse. Now, the last thing is the Cavalry Charges. Now, they just don't work. Now, they say in the video, this is being worked on, and it should look great come launch, because I believe in Attila, that's got some pretty good cavalry impact, like when the cavalry charges into infantry, for example. But it's not in Warhammer Fantasy just yet. But they keep showing it you throughout the video. It's like, oh, and you keep seeing cavalry going in, and it just looks really poor. I don't know why they would choose to show that off in that extent, because obviously people are going to pick up on it. I mean, hell, I'm picking up on it. I'm like, that looks silly. They do say they're going to fix it, though, so I hope they do. But let's not focus on the bad too much at the moment. They do say, after all, that this is pre-alpha, so pretty much all of it can be excused at this moment in time. But this is Creative Assembly we're talking about here. Everybody remembers the disaster that was Rome 2's launch. That was really poor. But they do seem to have sorted out most of the issues with the following launch of Attila. I can only really hope that Total War Warhammer launches relatively pain-free, and if it does, Creative Assembly and, well, Games Workshop for that matter, could be onto an absolute winner. But you know, here's the thing. I still find it rather strange that they've decided to have a full-blown AAA game developed on a now defunct game system. The armies that are depicted in this gameplay video, they no longer exist in the capacity you see them. Their empires have been smashed. The world has exploded. The lore is completely changed. I mean, sure, there's still orcs, there's still empire, but it's not line battle style. It's Age of Sigmar now, it's not Warhammer Fantasy Battles. And Age of Sigmar appears to be a kind of a small-scale skirmish game. Sure, you can play it large scale, but everything's changed. There's new factions, the gameplay's differently. It's no longer about large line battles. It's really weird. I mean, hell, just the world depicted in this in Warhammer Fantasy, well, in Total War Warhammer Fantasy, it no longer exists. It's gone. The end times have come. It's gone. It's weird. Anyways, I really want this game to be great. I remember saying this about Rome 2, and I kind of feel silly that I'm now saying it about Total War Warhammer, whatever the hell they call it. Total War Warhammer, that's it. Yeah, I just want to call it Total Warhammer. That sounds way better, but whatever. Just don't let me down, Creative Assembly. Like, you could win me over with this. If this is good enough to play when it launches, and there's no performance problems, and there's no like game-breaking issues, it's going to be pretty good. Also, I just want to throw this out. Games Workshop are bloody weird. I really don't know why you'd have a game developed on a game system you're getting rid of. Weird. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Starlo, so this is Unit Lost. Let me know what you think about Total War Warhammer. Do you think this could potentially be the best Warhammer game that has ever been made? That is a video game, obviously. I'm feeling that it could potentially be. I mean, it's got some pretty good games it needs to beat. Dawn of War, for example, that is the best Warhammer game ever. I know it's not fantasy, but that is still a hell of a game. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.